If you're watching this video right now, it's because you want to know what's going on in the real estate market here in Anchorage, Alaska. We'll be jumping into that in just a minute. Before we do though, my name's Jamin. I'm your first friend in Alaska, and I'm also an associate real estate broker in South Central Alaska. And let's talk about the crazy market that is Anchorage, Alaska right now. First thing we're going to look at in this market, if we're talking about single family properties, is what's going on as far as the inventory goes. And I'm going to be honest, if you were hoping to see like a return to the amount of inventory we had this time of year prior to COVID, where it was around 920, 970, you would be disappointed, because actually this time last year it was right around 410 properties available. Now it's 377. So instead of us actually getting closer to that higher inventory that we had before, we're actually seeing a decrease compared to the year before. Okay, now let's talk about what's going on as far as the number of homes that are actually being sold. So this time last year it was about 226, and this year it's about 225. So not a whole lot of difference there. Usually around this time of year, we'd expect to see about 250, 260, maybe 270. So you can see that being 225 is definitely on the lower end, but in relation to how low the inventory is, that's still pretty impressive and is indicative for the demand for single family homes in Anchorage. Last but not least, we see the average sold price went from about $510,000 this time last year to about $529,000 this year, which means we've seen an average sold price increase of about 3.7%. Now, if you're from the outside looking in, you see a lot of headlines out there saying, well, the prices are coming down, and you're looking on Zillow, you're seeing price cuts across the board. How the heck are we still seeing these average sold prices going up? Like what is the deal? Well, I'll be breaking that down in a little bit more detail in the summary, but just for now, just know that I kind of have the same thoughts that you have, and we're going to make some sense of it near the end of the video. But before we do that, let's go and switch gears and take a look at what's going on as far as the condos in the real estate market in Anchorage. So this time last year, there were about 130 condos available on the market. This year, it's about 156. Now, that's a bit of an increase, but let's also keep in mind, historically, prior to COVID, we'd expect to see anywhere from about, I think it's like 450 upwards of like 480. So we're still drastically not where we are inventory wise, but that's probably a good thing if you own a condo in Anchorage, because that amount of inventory that was available really did create a situation where there was like a glut of inventory, and condos were pretty hard to sell a couple of years ago. And I'm not really seeing us going back to that anytime soon, just because cost of living is still pretty high, which means options like condos are going to continue to be in pretty good demand. Speaking of demand, let's talk about the number of units that have actually sold in the near future, or in the near past recently. There we go. Recently. Sorry guys, I got like 3 hours of sleep last night. But if we look at the number of condos that have actually sold, this time last year it was 90. This year it's 93. Now, that's really indicative of how much demand we have for condos right now, because prior to COVID, we'd see anywhere from about 70 to like maybe 90. So we are seeing that we're kind of on the high end right now, even with the inventory being at about 30% of what it was before. And like I said, this really is indicative of how much in demand these more affordable options are for people in times when we have higher interest rate and a higher cost of living. Now let's talk average sold price year to date for condos. So this time last year, the average sold price for condos was about $278,000. This year it's about $294,000, which means we've seen an increase of approximately 5.6%. So yes, that's right. The condos are actually appreciating at a faster rate than what the single family properties are. Obviously, single family homes are starting at a higher price point. Kind of makes sense. But what we are seeing is average sold price for condos has pretty aggressively gone up in recent years, especially considering prior to COVID, we'd see like -1%, up 1%. And then after that, it went like 2.7 and then 6.4, 5.6. 11%. Last year was about 3%. It looked like things were leveling out, and now we're right back to like 5.6. So that really does speak to, again, how in demand these more affordable housing options are for people during times where interest rates do remain kind of high. I know we had some cuts a little bit ago. We'll see that trickling down to us a little bit. I'm sure. Hopefully, we have some more cuts incoming. But for right now, this is just kind of what we have to work with. And a lot of people do like these more affordable condos. Now, let's go and take a break real quick. For those of you who've been watching for a little bit, you do know that I host a podcast called The Alaskan Journey, where I interview people who recently moved up here. We're trying something a little bit new on this podcast, where I actually bring people on who haven't even moved to Alaska yet and give you the opportunity to actually ask me questions. And we can record that and post that up there as our podcast. So if that's something you'd be interested in being a part of, coming on, asking your questions, because I'm sure if you have that question, a lot of other people are probably thinking the same thing. So if that's something you'd like to do, then feel free to reach out to me on my website. Link for that is in the description section down below. It's the jgoecker.kbw.com, and register there. Make sure you put podcast or something like that, so I know I know what we're talking about, and I'll reach out to you and see if we can make this happen. Okay, let's keep it moving. All right, now talking about multifamilies in Anchorage, what we're seeing is that this time last year, there was about 103 properties available on the market. This year, it's a cool 100. So good round number. Historically, though, we would expect to see anywhere from about 190 to about 210, somewhere around there. So we'll say approximately half of the inventory that we normally have for multifamily properties in Anchorage. Next, we see that the number of multifamily properties that are actually selling has really been nothing but consistent in the past couple of years. What we see is that this time last year, there was about 31. This year, it's 29. Historically, we'd see anywhere from about 31 to about 33 multifamily properties selling for the previous month. So not a whole lot of movement one way or the other there. And it does kind of speak to the demand for multifamily properties in Anchorage, even though the inventory does remain pretty low. And one of the big reasons for that is that, yes, interest rates are high, but also rents are high as well. And just as the cost of living goes up in these areas, the rents go up as well. And so it does make a lot of these investments kind of make it a little bit more sense. Now, looking at the average sold price, I am always going to caveat this by just saying, hey, multifamily includes everything from the little duplex that may or may not, should legally be considered a duplex. Sometimes it's just a single family home that they chopped up in this weird, torturous way to make it act like a duplex, and it's not really. And it includes everything up to, the big commercial 100-unit complex, and it really includes everything in between. But what we see is that this time last year, average sold price was about $587,000, and this year it's about $611,000, which means we've seen an increase of about 4.2% for the average sold price for multifamily properties. Now, what caught my attention about this is that this time last year there was a huge jump, because it went from about $501,000 to that $587,000 over the course of 1 year, and that was a 17% jump in the average sold price. Now, I would have expected to see like a drawing down of that a little bit more closer in line to that 500,000, just because, we did see, we probably saw like some big commercial properties selling. And so that's kind of what made the numbers just shoot up like that. So I would have expected to see it kind of ease off of that in this past year. But instead of doing that, it's actually increased by about another 4%. So while I don't necessarily think every single multifamily property has gone up by $100,000 over the past couple of years, I do think it's gone up at a pretty good clip in recent years, and we'll just see how that continues moving forward. All right, summary time. What does all this mean? Well, if I am looking at the single family properties here in Anchorage, I kind of mentioned this before. Let's go ahead and break this down just a little bit more on what we're seeing, and why is it that we're seeing like so many price cuts and headlines, and yet the average sold price keeps going up in Anchorage. Like what is going on? Well, really what we're seeing is that a lot of these headlines are going to be reporting price cuts, not necessarily prices coming down, but price cuts. And even those that are talking about values coming down, they're usually talking about markets that are not Anchorage, Alaska. If you find one that says values are coming down in Anchorage, put me in touch with them. We'll have a little chat. But what we're seeing here is that the cuts are being done, but it's just because, people are being a little greedy on what they're asking for, and the market is bringing them back down to reality from what we've seen in previous years. Because it used to be in like 21 and 22, you could put any value on the property, like any asking price, and it was going to get bidded up really quickly. And that's not the market we're in anymore. Like, buyers are very educated. They can look at a property and tell if it's overvalued and what they're asking for. And unlike in previous years, they're not even going to make an offer. They're just going to let it sit there. A lot of sellers are having to come back down to reality a little bit, and they're starting to make those price cuts. So yes, while they've made a price cut, that doesn't mean the value's necessarily gone down, because they might have been asking, we'll say $450, they made the price cut to $420, okay? On paper, people are like, holy cows, it lost $30,000. It's like, okay, well, calm down. Like $550 might never have been in the cards to begin with. And realistically, this time last year, it probably would have sold for about $400,000, hypothetically, let's just say. So what that really does mean is that, yes, price cuts are being done just because a lot of sellers are being brought back down to earth. Does not necessarily mean that the values are coming down really anytime in the near future. Now, one thing to keep in mind, we did say average sold price has gone up by about 3.7%. This time last year, it went up by about 6.2%. So while we're not going down, the rate at which the value on home, the appreciation on homes is increasing is slowing down. And this is something that I've talked on this channel for, years at this point, that I do expect to see more of that moving forward. I'm not really seeing a price cut anytime in the near future, like an actual value being cut in the market. Like, I'm not seeing us really going from, $530 down to $510 or something like that again. I'm not really seeing that happen anytime in the near future, because you need to see a lot of options on the market in order to bring the prices down. Like, I don't care that, it's unaffordable now. It's like, we hit that unaffordable benchmark a long time ago, and yet prices keep going up. So the only two things that matter, the only two variables that matter when you're talking about real estate is going to be the demand and the supply. If it does not directly impact either one of those, the variable you're talking about probably just does not matter. Okay, and I know that's hard for a lot of people to hear, because a lot of people go into getting some rabbit holes and really start diving deep on a lot of these theories and everything. Only two variables that matter: supply, demand. Anything else does not matter. Okay, get off my soapbox. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. Reach out to me if you have any questions. We'll see you next time.